President.
Senator from Alabama.
Mr. President, we are entering a momentous week as Congress must face the reality that President Obama is moving towards a decision whereby he would issue executive orders in direct contravention of long-established American law that would grant administrative amnesty and work permits to 5 to 6 million persons that are unlawfully in this country. This after Congress has explicitly refused demands to change the law to suit his desire. Current law is plain. Those who enter this great nation by unlawful means or overstaying their visa are subject to removal and are ineligible to work. Indeed, I would just read this one portion of the Immigration and Naturalization Act, Section 274, making employment of unauthorized aliens unlawful. In general, it is unlawful for any person or other entity to hire or to recruit or refer for a fee for employment in the United States an alien, knowing the alien is an unauthorized alien. So that's the law of the United States. It's plain. Those who enter by unlawful entry are subject to removal and ineligible to work. So that's just one of the provisions, and it is our law. Our law is right, and it's just, and it comports with the laws of civilized nations of the world over, and if followed, will serve the honorable and legitimate interest of this nation and her people. Now, the National Journal, the Time magazine, and The Hill, and others are reporting that President Obama swore at Congress, and by implication the American people, plans by the end of summer, by the stroke of a pen, to do that which the law expressly forbids, provide amnesty and work permits for millions. This would be in contravention of his duty and his oath to see that the laws of the United States are faithfully enforced, and it would be a direct challenge to the clear powers of Congress to make laws. Congress makes laws, the executive branch executes those laws. It's that simple. So the President's actions are astonishing and are taking our nation into exceedingly dangerous waters, colleagues. Such calculated action strains the constitutional structure of our republic. Such unlawful and unconstitutional action, if taken, cannot stand. No Congress, Republican or Democrat, in the majority, can allow such action to occur or to be maintained. The people will not stand for it. They must not stand for it. So my petition, Mr. President, is that you pull back. It's utterly unacceptable for you to meet with special interest groups, La Raza and other passionate advocates, and then promise action to them that is contrary to law. Mr. President, such actions would be wrong. It would be an affront to the people of this country, which they will never forget. It would be a permanent stain on your presidency. I urge you to make clear that you will not do this. Now, I'm not suggesting negotiations or any parley or any compromise. There is no middle ground on nullifying immigration law by the President. Some of your people, maybe bright young staffers, think the President can intimidate Congress, that the chief executive can make such a threat and the lawmakers will just cower under their desk. That is wrong, sir. You cannot intimidate Congress or the American people who sent them here, for that matter. Simply put, that which you desire is beyond your lawful reach. This is the time for administration officials to urge restraint within the White House. It's critical that the Attorney General, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the White House Legal Counsel do their duty and give the only advice they can give. Do not do this, Mr. President. You cannot do this, Mr. President. That's what they need to say. They know that's the right answer, and they should stand up and say no. Some of the best work such advisors can do is to head off a disaster before it happens. CEOs, business types, politicians, governors, mayors sometimes get headstrong, and they need to avoid disaster, and their advisors need to stand up and be counted. Just as the unlawful DACA amnesty for young people created an unprecedented, unlawful flow of more young people, that initiative has now, it seems, encouraged the president to take even more unlawful action. For millions of adults, this time, a tenfold increase, the papers say. And if millions are given adults this time, a tenfold increase, the papers say. And if millions are given amnesty by executive order, we can be sure that the result will be even more millions of adults in the future coming unlawfully. It will collapse any remaining moral authority of our immigration law, undermine the sovereignty, really, of our nation. If you don't have a legitimate, lawful system of immigration that you can enforce and abide by, then you've undermined the very sovereignty of your nation. It amounts, in effect, what they're suggesting, an open borders policy that has never been the policy of any developed nation that I'm aware of, and has been rejected by Congress and the American people repeatedly. In effect, the president is preparing to assume for himself the absolute power to set immigration law in America. Well, I'll just enforce what I wish to enforce. The absolute power to determine who may enter and who may work, no matter what the law says, by the millions. Our response now is of great import. It will define the scope of executive and congressional powers for years to come. If President Obama is not stopped in this action, and he exceeds his powers by attempting to execute such a massive amnesty contrary to law, the moral authority for any immigration enforcement henceforth will be eviscerated. Anyone the world over who will get the message: get into America by any method you can, and you will never have to leave. We're almost there, but it's not too late. I've studied this issue. It is absolutely not too late for us to restore a lawful system that treats applicants to come to America fairly and serves the national interest. This can be done. We just need a chief executive who leads. So let me state a warning for the more purely political in Washington. The results of recent primary elections show that the American people are being roused to action. And once activated, their power will be felt. They will not be mocked. They have begged and pleaded for our nation's immigration laws to be enforced for 30 or 40 years. The politicians have refused. They have defeated amnesty after amnesty after amnesty. And they will not sit back and allow the president to implement through unlawful fiat what they have defeated through the democratic process. They must not yield to this. So there's one thing the powers in Washington fear, that is being voted out of office. Before a member of Congress acquiesces to any action of this kind, they should consider their responsibility to their constituents. No member in either party, Republican or Democrat, should support any border legislation that moves through this Senate that does not expressly prohibit these planned executive actions by the president, and that prohibits any expenditure of funds to implement them. There can be no retreat on this point, colleagues. We simply need to say the chief executive of this United States cannot expend any money to execute a plan of amnesty. Surely that would end it. So all of this is grim talk, but the situation is stark. congressional action this week to bar unilateral imperial action by the President is surely the best course to head off what could be a constitutional crisis. So it will be good for the President, really, because it will stop him from taking a step that will mar permanently his presidency and the office of the President. It will avoid a major governmental disruption at a time the nation faces many threats. It will protect the rule of law and the constitutional order, whereby Congress makes laws and the President executes them, whether he likes them or not. And you have heard it said, well, the President must act because Congress refused to act. Congress considered his proposal. They looked at existing law today, and Congress made a decision. It did not pass what the President proposed. It decided to stay with current law. So I would say that is a decision and a clear action by Congress. And it's not correct in his statement that Congress doesn't act, therefore I can use my pen to act, is absolutely false and contrary to our constitutional traditions. Pulling back at this time will avoid a major governmental disruption at a time when we are facing threats all over the world. There's much instability. As someone said, the wheels seem to be coming off in every area of the globe and at home. The last thing we need is a major, intense internal battle with the President over illegal actions that he'd like to take. Well, it will also protect the rule of law and the constitutional order to pass such legislation. It will help reestablish the constitutional power of Congress to make laws and perhaps mark the end of this Congress's acquiescence to executive overreach. Professor Jonathan Turley has expressed amazement that Congress has been silent in the face of some of the most imperial presidential actions ever, and he explicitly considers President Obama's actions on immigration to be one of those. But there are a host of others. And it will stop millions of work authorizations for those who would then be able to take any job in America at a time of high unemployment, falling wages, and thereby it would protect American workers. We have the highest the largest percentage of Americans in the working ages that are unemployed since the 1970s. And a lot of the job numbers that you see and that are cited with such positive spin, you have to know have unprecedented numbers of individuals on part-time work. These are not full-time jobs, many of them. An unprecedentedly high number of those jobs are part-time jobs. We're not doing well. This country does not have a shortage of labor. It just does not. It has a shortage of jobs. And recent immigrants, Hispanics and others who've come to America are having a hard time getting jobs too. Will it help them to have millions more competing for the limited jobs that are out there? Will it help poor working people all over America? Will it help African Americans? The experts tell us absolutely not. In fact, the Congressional Budget Office has told us that if this kind of mass amnesty were to be adopted, wages in America would fall for a decade. So let this clearly be known. The Congress of the United States and the President of the United States are given only limited powers by our Constitution. They are not unlimited. Neither the President nor Congress can do anything it wants to do. It was set up that way from the very beginning. Mr. President, you work for the American people. They don't work for you, and they will not accept nullification of their law passed by their elected representatives. And the American people are not going to accept it. They're going to fight this. I'm confident that they will. They will resist. And every member of this Congress, Republican or Democrat, will face a time of choosing this week Directly or indirectly, every member will be asked to support and co-sponsor legislation that would stop these actions by the President. It's not hard to do. It'll be a simple choice. The people will remember. The choice is clear. Do you support and approve the President's proposed actions? For those who co-sponsor legislation to stop this illegality, their answer will be clear. For those who refuse to take simple action to stop it, they will have voted to enable what the National Journal has rightly called explosive action by the President. Explosive action. And indeed it is. Because this immigration debate is important. People have invested time and energy and heart and soul into it on both sides. Good people have debated it. Congress has made a decision. The President is not now entitled unilaterally to assert his position. He submitted it to Congress. Indeed, he told some of these activist groups not long ago he did not have the power to do what they were asking him to do. Now he suggests he is before the end of the summer. So I'm calling on all members of Congress today to stand up to these lawless actions and sponsor legislation that will block them. I'm calling on all members of Congress today to oppose any border supplemental that does not include such language. I'm calling on every person in this body and in this House and in the House of Representatives to stand and be counted at this perilous hour. I think it is a perilous hour. I don't think I've seen a situation in which a president, weeks in advance, has announced he's going to take action that it clearly violates law. I've just never seen it, in my experience, to happen. So I'm calling on the American people to ask their representatives, where do you stand on this, Senator? Where do you stand on this, Congressman? All of us were elected by American citizens to serve them and to serve and honor their Constitution. That is our birthright. Will we answer that call? Where will history record each of us stood at this important time? I believe the answer should be clear. We stand for law, we stand for Constitution, we stand for an honorable, lawful immigration system that treats everyone fairly and serves the national interest of the people of the United States. I thank the chair and would yield the floor. Mr. President, I would note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.